And welcome back to HPL. We're about to have our second match for you here today, Jab versus Muzzy. Our first match of actual teammates playing against each other here at HPL. So I expect this one to go to the full 5, and I expect a lot of leveling war to go on here.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect it could just easily be the other way around as well. You know, if someone goes wildly against the strategies they're normally used to playing, it could completely catch their teammate off guard, who is, in this match, their opponent. So an exceptional treat, I think, for pretty much everyone coming in this one. It's so crazy to watch people who have perfected their strategies with each other to go head-to-head, because I don't think either one of them wants to test the other one on their knowledge in those matchups that they've been practicing with each other.
Yeah, we're about to get into the match here. Game 1, Jab versus Muzzy, and it's a really interesting point that you bring up here that they might not want to fight each other on that axis, because there's something to be said about just throwing your hands in the air and just being like, I'm just going to do what I'm good at. And let him make all the decisions. Let my teammate make all the choices, and maybe he'll just mess up.
Yeah. So right here, Jab. Something else that he has a very good win rate with in professional play is Druid. He's done absolutely fantastic on it. It's actually funny. The only game that he lost in HPL was he had turn 2 Wild Growth into turn 4 Innervate Dr. Boom, and Super JJ checked that opening and was able to beat Jab despite that opening draw. But that's his only loss with it so far. And so to see him pick it here, not a huge surprise. I think it's an excellent choice for this matchup. But Muzzy, he's queued up Rogue straight away, and if there's one strategy that can function exceptionally well versus Druid, it's something like Rogue.
Yeah, something like Rogue does usually handle Druid very well, but Muzzy's hand, not bad, not great, but if you look over on the other side, Jab's hand, very, very good.
Yeah, lots of action coming in here. Keeper of the Grove, Pilot Shredder, even got a Wild Growth to go with that, and he's got the Druid of the Claw to back that up. This hand looks fantastic for him. Muzzy, meanwhile, like you said, he's got some great tools in his hand, but something like Preparation is going to be very important for him to pick up pretty soon.
Yeah, he needs a prep so he can cast a sprint as soon as possible. That or a minion, one of his 4-drop minions, something like a Pilot Shredder would be absolutely perfect for him next turn. In fact, I think there's a chance that he's just going to play, yeah. I actually like this play, especially into the turn 4 of Jab here, of just playing Blood Mage Thalnos, because if Jab wants to go off curve here and not play a 4-drop, like if he doesn't have something like Keeper of the Grove, if he just has Pilot Shredder, then he can't check your Blood Mage Thalnos right away. And if he does do something, then I feel like it's a win-win for Muzzy, because he gets a card out of it and he gets Jab's turn.
Yeah, this is a really great spot, I think, to play this Blood Mage too. Just like you mentioned, Pilot and Shredder can be checked by the backstab now. Keeper of the Grove, you don't necessarily want to just be playing that on turn 4. You can silence out this Blood Mage and take away some of the impact from it, but then, he's looking at potential turn 4 plays from Muzzy that can be very strong in a situation like this. I cannot blame him for playing Keeper of the Grove. One of the best ways that you can beat Rogue is just straight up running him out of cards. And that's something that Druid can do very well in a situation where your opponent has gone turn 3 Blood Mage and then maybe doesn't have any action moving forward after that.
Yeah, you're going to see Muzzy do some Fan of Knives backstab action here, because he needs to find some more cards here. He needs a prep as soon as possible. There's a Pilot Shredder just 1 turn late. He has a Loatheb for next turn. It's going to be a 5/5 body, which is the most important part. Its ability is not going to really do much, but ooh, Jab picks up an Innervate here. That is a big draw going forward. He's going to be able to do multiple things in a turn here later in this game.
Yeah,
he might even get to do 2 things here. He might get to Wrath and draw a card here. As we saw yesterday, Wrath cleaning up our client for us. And he's going to get to play a Druid of the Claw this turn if he wants to.
Yeah, Loatheb also a very key minion to pick up in this spot. Something that Rogue does very well is utilize developing its board and then also throwing off its opponents. These major tempo plays basically throughout the course of the game are a very big talking point for it. Loatheb will all but shut off the ability for that to happen. So I expect him to save that until he sticks a threat to the board and then really punish Muzzy for it afterwards.
Yeah, I play a lot of Rogue myself, and Loatheb is the one card I just always fear. That card is so bad for you in so many ways. There's a lot of times that someone casts a Loatheb and you just can't even do anything.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely happens from time to time. You can see Jab, he's actually a little bit pained about this decision, trying to go back and forth over which one of these he actually wants to play. If he plays Druid of the Claw, I suspect it's being taunt. He hasn't seen an Eviscerate yet, but he has seen a backstab. So in the event that Muzzy does have an Eviscerate, it's a little bit tougher for him to go outright handle this Druid of the Claw.
Yeah, and Muzzy's going to develop a Loatheb here. He's going to be able to push through this Druid of the Claw next turn in a couple different ways. He already has a Sap, and that's one of the most important cards for Rogue in this matchup. But speaking of important cards, Dr. Boom drawn just before turn 7, and Jab is going to play a Loatheb here, protecting his Druid of the Claw from something like Sap.
Yeah, I mean, this is such an important turn here because that Loatheb came in. This actually shut off the ability for Muzzy to for Jab to coin out the Dr. Boom in that scenario, the Loatheb from Muzzy that was. So now moving forward, it's a matter of how he wants to do this. I mean, if he wants to kill this Druid of the Claw, he's going to have to leverage his life total. He's going to have to take blowback necessarily he doesn't want to take in a situation like this. Obviously, he'd love to have a cleaner way to kill this, but he doesn't have that available. He's going to have to settle for something like Azure Drake or Pilot Shredder.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if he Azure Drake's thinking he needs the extra card, or if he's going to Pilot Shredder just to re-up his weapon, since he might be looking for some form of Blade Flurry next turn.
Yeah, it doesn't have a Poison or a Tinker Sharp Sword Oil available just yet, though. So, I mean, 4 draws in his deck, I think he's very happy to see at this point. But, with the way that Jab has been developing this board, it's looking like a very big advantage over to him.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to cycle this Wrath. Actually, he's just going to deal 3 damage to the Pilot Shredder. He might use his hero power here to take care of this Lotheb.
Yeah, really going to look to keep very strict control over the board. At this point, he doesn't mind leveraging his life total. He hasn't had a lot of pressure applied to him. The Loot Hoarder is going to give Muzzy some extra cards, but it doesn't threaten anything that's on the board right now. So just getting the Pilot Shredder on board and then starting to really dig into Muzzy's life total is exactly where he wants to be. And I can tell you, playing against Druid, when you're down to like that 15, 14 life total zone, you are not comfortable about what your opponent pushing damage.
Yeah, Sludge Belcher is a pretty good draw if he needs to protect his life total. But going back to what Jab's been doing this game, we saw this with the statistics going into this game. He favors minion kills and mid-range strategy, so he wants to get board control here. And that's not always the worst idea with Druid. If you can stick some minions to the board, keep the board clear, and get in damage when you can usually finish them off with a combo.
Yeah, finding yourself in the later stages with a minion on board is one of the most dangerous scenarios against Druid, because when you couple Savage Roar with extra stuff that's on the board, it amounts to too much damage towards the later stages of the game. So Muzzy at this point doesn't have the liberty of continuing to take damage here just freely as he chooses, unless he sort of thinks to himself, there's no way he can win the game versus Force of Nature and Savage Roar. So this is actually kind of a critical turn here. Does he want to sweep out this Pilot Shredder with his life, or does he just want to sap it and try to buy himself enough time to move forward? Personally, I love the sap.
Yeah, I like sap here as well. You definitely don't want to sap the Lotheb. I mean, getting the bigger minion off the board is nice, but if you let him trigger that Lotheb again, you might not be able to get yourself back in this game. And Force of Nature picked up for Jab here. Now has Force of Nature, Savage Roar, so look for him to be able to push through a ton of damage with his Dr. Boom next turn.
Yeah, Dr. Boom adding so much pressure to this board.
Muzzy needs to draw something really good here this turn.
I mean, I'd be surprised if there's any cards in his deck to actually get him out of the scenario.
Just Muzzy just not drawing very well this game. He's drawn an anti-Keelbot at the wrong time. He drew a Pilot Shredder at the wrong time. He's got 2 Azure Drake in his hand that aren't going to help him get through this board state. I mean, he can Azure Drake into a Blade Flurry, killing a lot of Jab's minion, leaving behind only a Dr. Boom, and he might be able to survive this turn, but it looks like Jab is going to get an early win here.
Yeah, I frankly don't see any way to recover this. But even if he draws into something like Deadly Poison, he's able to Blade Flurry here. He does still have the fear of the Boombots killing the slime and then also dealing him a single point of damage. So kind of everything going the opposite direction for him. Backstab is an interesting pickup, but again, I don't think it's going to be able to really kind of put him out of range of anything that's going on. So you have to measure whether or not he wants to play the anti-Keelbot or play the Azure Drake. Just, kind of again, he doesn't have a way to weather this storm properly.
Yeah, there's something to be said about maybe playing the anti-Keelbot and then Blade Flurry, just hoping to God to get really lucky on these Boombot activations. Hopefully your slime can stay alive. That was pretty good for Muzzy there. He only took 1 from this Boombot. He's going to hopefully get lucky on this one as well. Oh, very lucky from Muzzy here. This is going to be enough to keep him alive this turn, I think.
No, it's not even close to enough because the Dr. Boom extra 7 damage. I mean, he's got Force Nature and Savage Roar in his hand. The extra 7 damage from Dr. Boom is really the important part here. So Jab easily going to win this game 1. And Muzzy, got to go back to, think about the strategy here. I do feel for him a little bit, though, because I feel like his early game did not pan out exactly the way he wanted to. He had turn 3 Blood Mage, didn't have an Earthring Farseer, didn't have an SI7 agent, wasn't able to utilize his turn 4 the way he had been doing it in his sweep against Era. He didn't have a minion to play. He had to Fan of Knives to try to draw some extra cards out of it. So kind of the story here was that Jab was able to get pressure on the board early. It went unchecked, and that kept him 1 step ahead the entire way.
Yeah, the general plan for Rogue in all of its matches is it wants to stick an early minion and control the board from there, because Rogue is so dangerous when it gets to leave an extra minion on play. Tinker Sharps and Oil can end games very, very quickly, in the same vein that Druid can end a game very quickly with its combos if you leave an extra minion on board. So both players are trying to execute a very, very similar game plan there. Jab's deck and his play just executed a little bit better.
Yeah, Muzzy also didn't have a Poison or a Tinker Sharp Sword to go into it. Just kind of had the wrong mix of cards, really, as far as that game plan. But that's something that happens anytime you play Hearthstone. I mean, sometimes you are just going to get the wrong cards going into it. But you don't look at it from game to game. You have to look at the big picture of things. On average, how is his deck going to perform? On average, what are his numbers going to look like? That's the important part of that. And, sort of just a consequence of that Rogue deck is that sometimes you will get the wrong mix and the game looks really ugly in those situations.
Yes, if you want to see the breakdowns of either one of the players' decks or the way they play them, or just anything about their career statistics, you can go over to pvplive.net. And guys, when we come back, we're going to have game 2 between Jab and Muzzy. Which teammate is going to bring home the win here? You're watching Hearthstone on PvP Live.